The Invisible Man. Celine had been searching for an escape from her nightmares, violent nights, and dark memories. After finishing university, she had struggled to survive for a while, leaving behind a relationship filled with emotional and physical abuse. The relationship was full of non-physical pains, fear, control, and manipulation. All of these had made her forget how strong she was and had made her lose her desire for independence. Finally, one night, when she felt completely drained and as though nothing was left, Celine found a single opportunity to escape, to run away. In the depths of the night, she made a life-changing decision. For a week, she had been trying to escape the shadow of her wealthy and intelligent ex-boyfriend, Jamal. Jamal had controlled every aspect of her life, slowly taking away all her rights. She couldn't take it any longer. In order to escape Jamal's oppressive and dark world, Celine took the opportunity presented by the night and darkness to make her move. She slowly distanced herself, taking each step carefully toward her safety and freedom, away from the fearful world she had known. Her ex had become obsessed with her. Fearing that Jamal would find her, Celine decided to hide. Her sister and a childhood friend offered their help. They too understood the terror and fears Celine had endured. One day, when Celine heard the news of Jamal's suicide, she became deeply suspicious. A man so powerful couldn't have just taken his own life. It seemed more like a ruse. After his death, he left her a large portion of his wealth, which only deepened the dark thoughts swirling in Celine's mind. Something was definitely wrong. The events unfolding could not solely be attributed to Jamal's influence. A series of eerie coincidences began to make Celine's world increasingly dangerous. One morning, as she awoke and looked around, she realized that the ghosts of her past, Jamal's lingering presence, were still chasing her. All of this felt like signs, as if something was gradually getting closer to her. Events became increasingly complex and people's lives were in danger. Celine desperately tried to prove that someone was after her, though no one believed her. She was fighting desperately to prove that something real was happening. Each day her mind was slowly fracturing, her strength waning. Was Jamal's supposedly dead body really part of an elaborate scheme? Celine was chasing something she couldn't see, but something she could always feel. An invisible entity was approaching, intent on taking her. Her sanity was deteriorating as she felt trapped in the night, the silence, and the darkness. With each step, she became more isolated, lost in a dark world. One day, when Celine faced a series of terrifying events threatening the lives of those closest to her, she decided to confront the truth. The unseen entity left behind by Jamal was relentlessly stalking her, waiting to seize control at any moment. But this threat wasn't a physical being, it was something much more sinister and mysterious. As the tension grew, Celine realized that those who were helping her were also in danger from this lurking force. Everyone's life was at risk and Celine only knew one thing. This was not a nightmare. It was the hunting ground of invisible horrors, and it was too late to uncover the truth. Celine was determined to face her nightmares, her fears, and the unseen enemy chasing her. But what would truly happen in the end? What kind of fate awaited her? The unseen force like a shadow was following her. This nightmare was not an end, but a beginning. Celine continued to fight against her fears each day. Even though she could feel the presence of the invisible being following her, seeing or physically feeling it was impossible. However, she noticed everything in her life slowly shifting. Every sound, every shadow, every subtle movement, everything seemed to be approaching her. One morning, as Celine sat alone in a room, dark thoughts suddenly left her feeling vulnerable. At that moment, something unexpected happened. She saw movement in her eyes, a silhouette, and then a scream. It was so sudden, so loud, that it deafened her ears. Everything she had gone through after Jamal's supposed suicide now came together. Almost every step, every corner, the entity watching her had finally decided to confront her. She quickly looked around but saw nothing. After all, even Jamal's shadows were now invisible to her. A few days later, despite Ceylin continuing to hide, the threat grew stronger. She tried to stay in contact with her sister, but one day, her sister vanished. That day, all the secrets finally connected for Ceylin. Her sister's disappearance proved that the invisible entity was getting closer. She thought something was truly wrong. The only things she could see and hear were the increasing whispers, creaking sounds, and strange shapes. At this horrifying turning point in her life, Ceylin didn't know what to do. For several nights, she listened only to the creaking sounds in the dark room. Everything was leading to a single terrifying thought. The invisible entity would completely engulf her and somehow take control of her. She was on the verge of losing her sanity. The worst part was, this thing might end up becoming the entity that once controlled her life, Samal. One night, she remembered an instance where she thought everything was over. That night, she had mustered the courage to break free from Samal's threats, to free herself from his control. That moment wasn't just about escaping physically, but also breaking free from the chains in her mind. But nothing was as terrifying as facing an invisible danger. As Ceylin searched for a way out, she began to realize how she had allowed the source of her fear to completely control her. Finally, she decided that Chimal's death had been a lie. Every second she spent defending herself had become a trap. The supposed suicide was really a deception, a scheme of the unseen power. One night, she decided to speed up her efforts to find her missing sister. A glimmer of hope appeared before her, but at the same time, she was determined to end the night with a resolution. As she took one more step, a dark shadow silently began to watch her. She felt something approaching. And then, one last scream echoed. As someone approached her, Ceylin's end was once again drawing near. Did she really escape? Or was she taken by an invisible force? Was this her chance to understand what was real, or was it a harbinger of an ending? No one would ever learn Ceylin's true fate, because when she disappeared, she left behind only the whispering dark shadow. Ceylin awoke with a scream. When she opened her eyes, she saw a dark and silent room. Her head throbbed, and amidst the blurred thoughts in her mind, she tried to understand what had happened. She couldn't fully recall the final moments, but something was definitely wrong. She could feel the shadows moving, the presence of an entity watching her, but she couldn't see or touch it. A form, a shadow, a ghost-like presence. She listened to the silence of the night. Only the faint sound of the wind and distant eerie creaks could be heard. In that moment, everything seemed normal, yet Ceylin continued to face darkness and fear. Slowly, she got out of bed and moved toward the window. She felt something move around her, but there was no one outside. Holding her breath, she opened the door to her room. At that moment, as her eyes wandered through the dark corridor, there was someone there. The invisible entity had followed her. The terrifying thoughts racing through her mind seemed to draw nearer. She quickly pulled back, but knew that something was coming closer. The entity was following her every step, but strangely enough, no one could see it. The sounds in her mind were beginning to feel like a real threat. From the whispers, she heard her sister's name. For a moment, she had a brief hope. She stepped toward her sister. She wanted to find her, but no matter how far she ran, the invisible force would not let go. At that moment, the dark presence growing with each step grew more intense. Finally, Ceylin realized she was completely surrounded by the watching entity. A shock, a fear, a weight that suffocated her breath. In that moment, she realized how helpless she truly was. In that horrifying night, something inside Ceylin was breaking. She was being forced to confront her fears, her past memories, and the terrifying ghosts she didn't want to see. She tried to understand who that dark figure was and why it was hunting her. She was lost between ghosts, shadows, and memories from the past. As she took her steps, it felt like everything was an illusion. Was she truly running from a nightmare, or had she trapped herself in a dark world she had created? Finally, Ceylin's mind took a blow. All of her efforts, struggles, and escapes had amounted to nothing. The dark entity had finally found her. This was not just a fear, it was real. Her mind had completely shattered, and the darkness that surrounded her now took control of everything. For a moment, Seelan felt as though she had lost all strength. Then, a moment of silence. Finally, a thought crossed her mind. Is it really possible to escape? But she would never know the answer. Enveloped by an invisible entity, lost in the shadows, Seelan had met her end. She had become nothing more than a memory, a story, a terrifying life that had disappeared, a disappearance, an unconsciousness, a nightmare, and in the end, a completely lost life.